We're on chapter 4, The Journey to Dakshineshwar, in Sri Sharda Devi and her divine play tonight. And last week, we were talking about a lot of things, partly their relationship and how they really only got a total of about 10 years together in their life, even though they were married for their whole lives. And just talking about the interesting thing of God incarnating, or God coming as a sage, or however you want to view Ramakrishna, that's up to you. But that he made a point of getting married and even choosing his wife in this life in order to really demonstrate to us that marriage is not primarily a sexual arrangement, as we're often, as it kind of defaults to, I think, in our common culture, and that's not really what marriage is about. That it's much more. It's having a companion to help you on your spiritual path and on your spiritual journey, and having someone to share those moments with. Ramakrishna really demonstrated that, and how marriage transcends life. Thakur left Holy Mother quite early in the marriage by ducking out of at least ducking into another room, he said. He says, "Why are you weeping?" Because she was weeping after his death about him being away. And he appears to her and says, "Why are you weeping? I've just gone to the other room." And so, marriage is a transcendent relationship in a way. I mean, I know that has limits also, since the soul is one without a second. Who will you marry? But even at some level in the play, even transcending death at some level, that relationship can go on, apparently, seemingly. And Thakur teaches us this, and he taught us the proper way to have those intimate relationships with the deep respect that he showed for the Divine Mother in worshiping her as God, as the divine. And she as well had that intense respect to him and worshiped him as the divine. And if you have a relationship where each person is putting the other's needs and well-being before their own, then you have a healthy marriage. Even in the Christian tradition, they talk about that. This notion is that in a marriage, the key to a great marriage is to be more concerned about your partner than you are about yourself. And that's a beautiful lesson that you see play out in I would say, the world's greatest marriage between Ramakrishna and Sri Sharda Devi. Of course, that's from a single guy who's never been married, pointing out the best marriage in the universe. But so these are some of the things that we look kind of between the cracks at in this book about the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is very interesting to study and to learn from, because very rarely, of course, in that book that we started with, the collection of her teachings are right out in front here, and you can see all of that. But when I was first asked to give a lesson on the Divine Mother, which was for a retreat in DC some 8 years ago, I was asked to speak on the Divine Mother. It was my very first lecture, I think, when I was in DC. And so I wanted to talk about Sri Sharda Devi and somebody has logged into the wrong class. Amrit is in Vedic Christianity. So anyway, but I wanted to teach about Sri Sharda Devi and renunciation. So I did a search to start off that investigation and couldn't find anything. It returned no results for Holy Mother or Sri Sharda Devi and renunciation. And I thought, how can that be? And so jokingly, I did a search for Holy Mother and chapatis. And I got it in a humorous way. I got a lot of material on renunciation. The primary one that really hit me was that one night in the middle of the night, it was after 10 p.m. So one of the men shows up on his way to visit Ramakrishna, and he's walking by the Nahabat. He just yells, He doesn't even know that Ma's in there. He just yells, "I want 8 chapatis," and goes in to see Thakur. And I'm like, okay, the fact that that man survived his walk from the Nahabat to the temple after having yelled a command at the Divine Mother to make him 8 chapatis without even greeting her first. If Mother was in there and he's still alive, then I know that Holy Mother has an infinite amount of renunciation that she can accept, that she could just turn around and make him 8 chapatis, which is what she did. She just made him those chapatis. And so Mother's most beautiful teachings, in my present opinion, is hidden in the way that she lived, and not so much in the things that she necessarily said, although there's plenty of that as well. But that when you read about Mother, you have to stand back a little bit farther and take in a little bit more information, because she's very subtle in her depth. And I think that that's maybe why it took a lot of those young disciples so long to recognize her as to who she was, because she was so utterly unassuming, so utterly sweet and demanding nothing from everyone, while serving everyone constantly with a great love, a great heart. Some of my fondest moments, I think, is watching the way she interacted with Ramakrishna, because all of us interact with Ramakrishna with kid gloves on, being very respectful and whatnot. And she's quite funny. She's quite funny with the way that she interacts with them, even after he had passed, and she's going to the shrine with that rice to offer it, and the rice pot slips out of her hand and breaks and gets the rice all over the floor. And, most of us would be all in a pickle about, oh my gosh, this can't be offered. It's dirty now, and blah, 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 blah. But Mother, who really knew God, Mother who really was intimate with the beloved, says, well, this is what you've ordained. This is what you're going to get. She scoops that rice into another pot and takes it into the shrine and gives it and offers it.
Actually, Swami, they were traveling in bullock carts, and they had stopped by the side of the road to cook, and it fell on the ground. And so she picked up the part that was not touching the ground and then offered it and served it to everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Super practical too.
Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah. That intimacy that she had with the divine, it's really the intimacy that in time we'll have, but we can assume without being presumptuous. If we're careful, we can enjoy that kind of relationship with the divine as well. And so as we read about Ma here in these texts, keep your ears and eyes open to the environment and what's going on around her, and her actions and the way that she's responding and whatnot, and the stories about her. Because there's a lot, she scattered a lot of gold dust as she walked. And it's quite fun to look deeply at the Divine Mother, because no matter how deep you look, it just gets more loving. It gets more compassionate and sweeter.
If I may ask you, like when we think of some people like Ma, we think of as with love. Like she's all about love, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But the power that she had, I mean, I'm being the devil's advocate, and it's not fair for me to say, but I'm just saying, because she had the Shakti, it was kind of a little easier also for them to be loving to people who were not deserving. Is it so? Because they were like, I would treat her as equal to Thakur in a way, like he said that if she's unhappy, if she's unhappy, he can do nothing. So, yes. Right. So, but what I thought was that Ma was, you don't think of Ma as an intellectual, but it's more of love, right? Like if Swamiji, you think of as intellectual, right? Ma is love. So I don't know what I'm trying to say, but yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering too, Geeta. It sounded to me like you were looking for an excuse not to love as much as Mother did, but
No, I found it like she was too good. Sometimes it's too loving to be true, to people who didn't deserve. Some were so rude, and so because I think we people can't do it,
Well, we can do it. We're made in the image of the divine, so we've got the ability to do it built into us. But we don't, unlike Mother and unlike Thakur, we don't know who we are. And so we don't act from the place of what we are. We act from the place of what we think we are. And unfortunately, what we think we are is based on the body and based on the conditions of mind. And so our love is only initiated from that platform and not from the eternal platform, the unchanging platform that is our true self, that our real identity. And so as long as that's true, absolutely, our love is always going to be tainted with a certain amount of selfishness to it, but we are fully capable of it, by grace. We can come to a working knowledge of our nature and what we are, and we can feel that love. We can be filled to the brim with that love, so that it literally spills out of us without even an effort. If we can surrender our story, if we can surrender our mind to Mother, if we can surrender our thinking, to Mother, then absolutely we will become directly aware of that power within. Because Shakti, yes, she was Shakti, no doubt, but everything that we work with, everything that we build our lives with, is Shakti. We also act only in Shakti. In the power of the Mother. All change happens in Shakti. All change happens in the Divine Mother. So she is the power of God. And that's how it manifests. But yes, Thakur in a way, not just in a way, pretty much directly, but I'm just afraid to say it, taught us to respect Holy Mother even more than we respect him. He says, with me, you can do, you make me angry, and that'll be whatever it is. But if you get her angry, there's nothing to be done for you. So in that sense, and he worshipped her, so that also is a statement very early on in their relationship. So yes, there's very fascinating things around their relationship, around the nature of Mother, the way that she was, and the things that she's praised for are also quite interesting. You definitely see that God as Mother brings forward a very different set of attributes in the personal God than God as Father, or God as man. That you're going to get another set of attributes in that. And then even in Swamiji, if you take this incarnation as being the way that I kind of see the three of them, I see a single incarnation in three people.
Oh wow!
That they were a single being, and they say that about each other. Vivekananda says, "Do you see me as different from the Master?" When the disciples are questioning his instructions as being different from Thakur's, he said, "Is there a difference between me and Thakur?" And Holy Mother says the same. Is there a difference between me and Sri Ramakrishna? So they were a single incarnation in three people, because God is infinite. And one of the first arguments against an incarnation is, how could the infinite manifest as the finite, in a single person? And so in this incarnation, I think we got a very special look at the Beloved as he manifested in three radically different manifestations. You've got Mother, you've got Father, and you've got perhaps brother or hero or teacher, or as you like in Vivekananda. But the three of them together, what a power. The world will never be the same because of them. And their effect has only just begun to creep out into the world and to come up through the soil, because Ramakrishna didn't come to start another religion or to start another sect. So he kind of fell into the ground like rain. His teachings, I remember sitting in the cathedral in San Francisco, Grace Cathedral, and in the back of the room there were these 10 points of that Grace Cathedral was committed to, and I read them, and they were very universal in nature and very diverse in nature. And I read them and I thought, that's not a Christian teaching. That's not information that's rooted in Christian teaching. I said that perspective that's being included in there, that's coming from Thakur. That's coming from the broadness of Vivekananda, the depth of Divine Mother. And she's changing that. And I found that also if you look at Richard Rohr and the things that he's doing in the Catholic Church, some of his books, he's definitely teaching the Sanatana Dharma almost boldly. He's just, doing it through Christian scripture. But it's no doubt that Mother came, or the divine came in this incarnation in a very different way. Not to build another vehicle to start yet another religion and another movement, but to give a set of teachings that are so universal they don't have a particular to them. And they can go into the ground and will come up in every religion. And I think slowly we're watching that begin to happen. You just even look at the things the Pope has said in the last couple of years, very, very revolutionary things as far as accepting other religions as having truth in them, and things along those lines. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. I'm kind of running off into a big wide open meadow of great fun, but not part of the class tonight. So let's jump into chapter 4 here, Journey to Dakshineshwar. And our entry scripture tonight is to march along is to gain immortality. Marching by oneself is the sweet fruit of the journey. Look at the sun, the ever glorious and eternal traveler, who once having started on his journey has never felt drowsy. Hence, O traveler, march along. Indeed, that's one of the most important things in my experience in spiritual life, is this tenacity, this constantly getting up and trying again. It's what teaches us to live in the moment, actually, more and more, because, the 10,000th time that we have to get up and apologize for our actions or our thoughts or, whatnot, it's like we can't take ourselves seriously anymore because we've apologized so much to God and we've run into so many faults in front of the beloved, that without that knowledge of grace and without that assurance of an unconditioned love, we would have been beaten long ago. We would have failed long ago and given up. And this is how we learn. And this, I think, is the main point of spiritual life, is to understand and plumb the depths of unconditional love, which is the same as saying to know God, to know the divine. And what an amazing opportunity, more than an opportunity. What an amazing life we've been allowed to approach and to learn from. So yes, like the sun, do not grow weary. Hence, O traveler, march along, keep going. You're guaranteed to win. Everybody gets a trophy. So at the end, the more often gold is rubbed with a touchstone, the more it glitters. Oh, that's beautiful in a sense, because in a way he's saying the more that you have suffered and the more that you've had to deal with difficulty in life, the more you sparkle, the more you shine. And that's a beautiful thing to hold close to your heart when you're suffering, when you're going through the difficult times. When you're in the difficult times are the whole point to you. But after the difficult times are behind you, it's the lessons that you remember. It's the beauty that you touched in those times, or that you learned about in those times, that remain with you. They transform. If you handle them properly, if you can handle them with detachment and with discernment, suffering becomes beauty. If the attachments don't break, then suffering remains suffering, and sometimes turns into defeat. It's like when our loved ones pass away. If we insist on being attached to the body mind and the short time that we had with that body mind, then there's only suffering in remembering our loved ones when they go. But if we recognize that the love we have inside of us is who that person was, even when their body was there, even when their mind was there, their existence to you, their reality to you, was the love that was in you, that you felt toward them, that was reflected to you from them. And that love is awakened every time we remember them, anytime we think of them. And so knowing that, death becomes an increase in beauty and intimacy, because that person is now closer to you than their body allowed, closer to you than their mind allowed. They're actually a part of you. They've integrated with you, and you carry them with you in your soul and in your heart of hearts. And that is what death is meant to teach us, that there is an immortal, unfailing part of us that is not subject to time, that is not subject to this world at all. And by understanding that the nature of that is the pure love that we are all seeking and enjoying in life, that is that one permanent thing. And if from our loved ones we recognize that, then we know what we're dealing with when they're alive, and we recognize them continually after the body drops. And so that is how memories of people who have passed still bring us joy and still inspire even deeper love, and does not become a source of sadness, does not become a source of regret, right? And so this is how we go forward, by making gold out of every moment, in whatever the moment provides for us to make gold from. That's our task, is to live this moment, and in this moment find that perfection that is God, and through that perfection find God in the moment. So that's our task as spiritual folks. And that's why I say your relationship with God can be equated to your relationship with this moment. How are you feeling in this moment? Because this moment is God. This moment is the I am. If you're discontent, then you've got a pebble in your shoe. There's something in your relationship with God that you need to pay attention to. If the moment is sad for you, if the moment is lacking, if the moment is whatever, it's a good invitation, because God is this moment. He lacks nothing. He's always present and ever perfect. And so if we can't see that perfection in this moment, that's our invitation to grow, our invitation to discern, so that we can find a way of living this life in an unbroken contentment. All right, so a fire burns more brightly when the wood is stirred, and a snake raises its hood high when it is struck. Similarly, a human soul awakens when a person is challenged. The lives of divine women who accompanied the avatars in every age were full of suffering and tragedy. Enduring all forms of hardship, they demonstrated how to overcome suffering through strength of will, and how to surrender to providence. Suffering on top of suffering made the divinity of those great women shine forth. This is why, in the Indian tradition, we pay respect to the Shakti, or the female counterpart of God, first. We say Lakshmi Narayan and not Narayan Lakshmi. Similarly, we say Gauri Shankar, Sita Ram, and Radha Krishna. It sounds poetic, sweet, and melodious when the name of Shakti comes first. Although the life stories of the avatars' spiritual consorts are full of pain and suffering, their love for their husbands shines forth unparalleled. They represent the ideal of womanhood. Their lives were brightened by their love, by their purity, by their patience and forbearance. their contentment and service, their self-control and renunciation, devotion and faith, gratitude and unselfishness, poverty and austerity, sacrifice for humanity, and reliance on God. They were established in their own greatness and glory by virtue of these noble qualities. And these are all qualities of the divine spirit. You know, the reason that they had these qualities is not because they had learned to behave themselves. The manifestation of these qualities doesn't come because we learn how to imitate cool people. These qualities come naturally from within when we remove our smallness, remove our delusion, our ego, our thinking, our thoughts that we've trusted and believed. So it's a wonderful way of perceiving this, this great respect and this great awe for the feminine, a very deep and profound understanding of its qualities and how it's expressed and how important, how fundamental, not just important. My goodness, you know, the feminine divine is the very vehicle of society. It's what carries the world forward, you know, and that is profoundly important, I think. Definitely something that doesn't get near enough respect or near enough attention in the world. So from 1867 to 1871, Sharada lived with her parents in Jairambati and continued to serve her relatives. 4 long years passed. Though her body was in Jairambati, her mind dwelled on her sweet memories of the Master. Sharada grew into a beautiful young woman of 18. Every day she expected to hear from her husband, but no message came. Sometimes she would say to herself, "He was very kind to me during our last meeting. How can he ever forget me? In good time he will, of his own accord, call me to his side. Let me patiently wait for that happy moment." Do you see a lesson here? Are we understanding what she's saying to us in these words, 200 years later? This is how you and I relate to the beloved, to the divine, that we are betrothed to God and we are going for that union of bliss in love with the divine. And God hasn't come yet. We're still ignorant. We're still running around suffering in this world, wondering, gosh, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And so how do we live? Well, the first thing we do here is we remind ourselves, well, he loves me. Every scripture, every sage in the world will tell you of the love of the divine, that God's love for you is absolute, overwhelmingly so. So it's knowing that. It's first of all putting our flag on that. No, this relationship is built on God's love for me. It's unbreakable. It's unending. So that's the first thing she says here. He was very kind to me during our last meeting. Can he ever forget me? In good time he will, of his own accord, call me to his side. Let me patiently wait for that happy moment, right? So we live with this knowledge that this relationship with the beloved will manifest, will produce its huge transformation in us. It will bring us to our knowledge of ourselves, and that we simply have to wait patiently for that happy moment, for that divine moment, knowing that it will come. It's that story of those that we talk about, of those 2 young men, counting the leaves on the trees. For one of them, he didn't care how many lifetimes it would take. Just the fact that he would realize God was his joy and bliss. And that's what it is to be a devotee. We don't worry about how long this is going to take or how hard it is. We just take great delight in the fact that it's guaranteed, that your realization is guaranteed. You will be successful in this endeavor. And so there's no reason to fret. There is a saying, gossip spreads faster than the gospel. In the absence of any word from her husband, Sharada became the victim of terrible village gossip, right? And that's the world around us about spiritual life. You know, how silly spiritual life is, you know, imaginary friends that you're creating in your mind to make your life better. You know, it seems that way from the surface. And certainly when you begin spiritual life, you're very susceptible to that kind of talking and that kind of thinking because you haven't touched something deeper yet. You haven't seen something, quote, you know, quote, real yet in your spiritual life. And so these ideas and these worldly notions of the non-existence of the divine, or, you know, the outdated nature of religion, and, oh, just we should need to throw this whole thing overboard. Parts of it I agree with that. There's definitely parts of religion that we could throw overboard in a very happy way, mainly our egos. But this understanding, you know, as the world around us sometimes brings very difficult situations to us and very humiliating statements to us, we're unaffected by that because we have a deeper experience of it than that, something that's more reassuring than that. So gossip spreads faster than the gospel. In the absence of any word from her husband, Sharada became the victim of terrible village gossip. Gossip breaks hearts and ruins lives. Its victims are helpless, and it causes innocent people to pass sleepless nights and to make them cry into their pillows. Reports came from Dakshineshwar that Ramakrishna had gone completely insane and that he wandered around naked, crying to the Divine Mother. The villagers mistook Ramakrishna's God-intoxicated state for insanity. At the bathing ghat, the village women chattered and gossiped. One woman pointed at Sharada and said, "There's a madman's wife." Another one added with mock sympathy, "Ah, poor Shyama Sundari. She has married her daughter to a lunatic. How sad." There is a saying, rumor has 1,000 tongues. Well, rumor also is the rope tied to a huge ego, a very self-unaware ego. And, you know, this is something that there's lots of room for us to work on. Gossiping is a terrible poison in a spiritual community. And, you know, what to say about that? How many times have I heard it in the background? You know, when I was working in the basement and the kitchen was full of people working in there, and people weren't aware of who was around, and the things you would hear said, or the things I hear people come to me about that have been said to them or about them in a social context. You know, it's just heartbreaking what we're willing to say about others. It really is just heartbreaking. Because it's only fodder for the ego. That's all. If you're gossiping to someone else, you know, you may think, oh, this is just for fun. It's just entertaining. We're just talking. No, you're not. You're fertilizing your ego. You're giving it an amazing amount of power by being willing to talk about somebody else without regard like that, and to speak in those ways about others. And it's something that we should be very, very careful about. You will fall victim to it. And I believe that you will have to suffer the things you say about other people. You will hear them said about you. That is how karma works. And so be careful about what you're willing to talk about and what you're willing to say about others. It's always better just to follow the rule that I know most of us were taught when we were kids. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. That's a great rule, especially for an adult. And you know, the more adult you are, the more important it is that be your rule. That you will only say things that are helpful to others. That may not mean that you only say nice things about others, you know, but it will always say that your love matches your criticism, which means you love that person more than you're criticizing them, and they're aware of it. That's the only way that harsh lessons can be learned, is if the love in your heart is deeper than their fault, and that they know that love that you have for them. All right. Even at home, Sharada had no peace. She heard her mother lament, "I have married my daughter to a madman. It is as if I have thrown her into deep water with her hands and feet tied." Sharada was stung by these remarks and avoided people as much as she could. She found relief in keeping herself busy with household duties day and night. When it was unbearable to be at home, she visited her Aunt Banu, a widow who lived nearby and was very loving and sympathetic. This woman had insight and understood the divine personality of Ramakrishna. She once told Shyamasundari, "Your son-in-law is Shiva himself and Krishna too. You may not understand this now, but you will in the future. Mark my words." Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Now, see, wouldn't you rather be remembered in the scriptures as somebody who said that to Sharada than to mock her for being married to a crazy man? So remember that, because these women in this story here did not know that they were going to be remembered in scripture. And so is it too crazy for me to say that you might be mentioned in scripture at some point? And so you should be aware of what role you're playing, because we don't want to be remembered in a particular way, in that way. And even if it's not scripture, it's still the hearts of the people around you. So be careful about how you speak. Be careful that love is driving your chariot. Make sure that it's love controlling the horses and the reins in your life, and that it's not your ego, because the ego is so destructive. All the things that are wrong in the world today that seem so overwhelming are attributed to ego alone. It is the cause of all of our suffering. It's the cause of climate change. It's the cause of the wealth discrepancy. It's a cause of just the hatred that you hear spewed at times. So don't be guilty of that yourself. Let your response to an egoed world be an egoless self. You do the opposite. That's the challenge. That's the challenge. Your son-in-law is Shiva himself and Krishna too. You may not understand this now, but you will in the future. Mark my words. Referring to this difficult time, Sharada later said, "One must always be busy. Work keeps the body and mind in good shape. During my young days at Jairambati, I was active day and night and did not visit anyone's house. If I ever did, I heard people say, 'Shyama's daughter has been married to a madman.' I avoided people so that I might not hear such remarks." Later, Sharada related to some women devotees her days of suffering during that period. "I was then in Jairambati. I was a mature young woman. I heard the master had rubbed his face on the bank of the Ganges and cried, saying, 'Mother, mother, do thou reveal thyself to me.' People could not understand him, so they spread rumors that he had become mad. When I heard this, I was terribly hurt, but out of shame, I could not express my feelings to anyone. Seeing my tearful eyes, only Aunt Banu understood. She would console me, giving me a hug and caressing my head, saying, 'Why do you make yourself miserable listening to gossip? Your husband is Lord Shiva himself. I recognized him in the bridal chamber on the very day of your marriage. Don't worry. You will see. One day, that very madman will conquer the hearts of all. He is mad in the name of the Divine Mother, and that very mother will make everything right.'" I want to be this woman. I want to be this woman. I want to be this woman. I want to be able to go and hear these people that are beaten by this world, that are abused by this world, that are broken by this world. And I want to share these words from Thakur with these people, that we can have this kind of impact on the world around us simply by being what we are, simply by responding, making an allowance for our nature to come through and to not let ego drive our decisions and our thoughts, by being men and women of the heart. If Sri Sharada was anything, she was that beacon call, to be men and women of the heart, to love deeply. But this idea of being very busy is quite important, to keep the mind and the body engaged. An idle heart, or there's a Christian saying, an idle heart is the playground of Satan. that when you sit there not doing anything, your mind wanders, and it'll wander to these things. It's interesting that her aunt says to her, why do you make yourself miserable listening to gossip? She says that it's not the gossip that makes you miserable. It's not what people are saying that is going to make you miserable. It's listening to it, paying heed to it, giving credence to it. That's what hurts. That's what makes us miserable. And so, we keep our mind busy. Busy in what? Busy in our practice, busy in our duties, busy in our service, busy in our studies, busy in our practice kind of covers everything, but in the thought of God, remaining in that divine presence, that we fill our time. It's not good, especially in the beginning of spiritual life, to lie idle, because all of the tendencies of the mind will parade in front of you. If you were a person coming out of a background of a lot of lust or a lot of greed or a lot of anger, or an abusive home or any of those things, if you lay idle, the mind will start replaying the samskaras, will stop parading them in your mind. And you'll get there and you'll get into them, and without anything to draw you out of it, you'll get caught into a state of mind that's been built around gossip, that's been built around lust, that's been built around anger, that's been built around resentment. And that's very hard to overcome. And so always be diligent in keeping yourself busy in I was going to say something I would have to unsay later, in building a good samskara for tomorrow, which is an odd way of saying be present and think of tomorrow at the same time. But, to be fully present in the moment and watch the mind. That's one of the reasons we watch, not just to learn how it works, not just to recognize its patterns, not just to understand our relationship to it, right? But we watch our minds to catch it when it starts going down. Mother says the nature of the mind is to go down like rainwater falls. The mind also goes down. So what brings our mind up? The name of God. The mantra is what brings our mind up. It's what fills us with love and reminds us of integrity and of that divine wisdom. So it's our mantra that lifts the mind, and it's the devotion, that lifts the heart to the beloved, to the divine. So Sharda is showing us here. She's like, the way that I survive these times, is by staying busy and keeping a focus on the work that I had to do as the Divine Mother. The villagers' ridicule went on unabated. There is a saying, the funeral pyre burns a human being only once, but agony and anxiety burn all the time. Sharda burned with anxiety, constantly doubting her husband's sanity. Again and again, she deliberated within herself, is my husband no longer the same person? People are saying he has become mad. Is this true? If this has indeed happened by the decree of Providence, I should not stay here. I must take care of him. Wow. Even if he's gone mad, even if everything that they are saying is true, what's her reaction? Oh, is this not amazing? What is her reaction? Her reaction is gracious. We're having a storm. I'm going to blow away in front of you, Peter, if I'm not careful. But her reaction to that, I can't stay here. And I was nervous about what she was going to say next. But she turns around and says, I can't stay here. I have to go and serve him. I have to go and take care of him. That's why she's the Divine Mother. Look at the depth of that love. Look at the depth of that commitment. Look at what is important to her, about the people that she loves, about you. her the most important thing, her biggest concern about you is taking care of you, is serving you, bringing you through this life, through all of this gossip and all of these wrong ideas and all the things your senses tell you about yourself, and all the belittling of your spiritual life and your weakness and your faults and your shortcomings. You can always know there's Aunt Banu, now Sri Sharda Devi, who's telling you all of these things are pooling together to create a saint out of you. All of these things are working together to break your bondage and to show you the light of what you are. This is the nature of the world. It's not the nature of politicians and the nature of geopolitical whatevers and climate changes and whatnots. That's not the real story. That's not the enduring story of this world. The enduring story of this world is shown in the eyes of people who have dedicated themselves to truth, to love, to service, to compassion. The people who come along and pick up the mess of the egos. This is the enduring message of the world. That one part of you which is absolute, unchanging, immortal, ever free, is the part of you that shares the name of God, love, wisdom, and being. At last, her patience reached its limit, and she decided to go to Dakshineshwar and to see for herself. Sri Sharada later said, "It was March 1872, and some of our village women were going to bathe in the Ganges in Calcutta on an auspicious occasion. I said to one of them, 'I want to go to Dakshineshwar to see how my husband is doing.' She reported this to my father. I was shy and afraid to talk to him. My father agreed, saying, 'It is fine if she visits Dakshineshwar.' He accompanied us. Sometime after the middle of March 1872, Sharada, her father, and several women started their journey to Calcutta. During those days, the long roads through the fields were frequented by robbers, so people always traveled in groups. Most people walked, except for the wealthy, who used palanquins. It was a strenuous journey of 64 miles that crossed 5 rivers, the Amadar, the Dwarakeshwar, the Mundeshwari, the Damodar, and the Ganges. Travelers passed through the panoramic scenery of the vast paddy fields and beautiful lotus ponds. Sometimes they rested under the shade of a peepal or banyan trees along the road, and at night in a roadside inn. Sharada and her companions walked happily for 2 or 3 days, but then Sharada's legs and feet began to hurt. She had never undertaken such a long journey, and she was barefoot. Her feet swelled with blisters and bruises. Moreover, life in a malaria-stricken village had not given her robust health. Sharada had a terrible attack of malaria on the way, and she developed a high fever. Ramachandra was very worried. He took shelter in a wayside inn with his daughter. After covering Sharada with a chadar so that she would not shiver with chills and fever, he went to collect food and water. Sharada was terribly distressed that she had fallen ill. That night, however, she had a wonderful vision that greatly reassured her. She later recalled, see, once again, just that little sentence up there. She was greatly distressed that she had fallen ill. just another small mark of her selflessness there. She later recalled, I was lying almost unconscious with fever, without any sense of decorum. Just then I saw a girl come and sit down beside me. She was black in complexion. There's a footnote here that says it was evidently the goddess Kali who appeared to her in this vision. I had never seen such beauty before. She began passing her hand over my head and my body. It was so soft and so cool that the burning sensation of my body began to subside. I asked, "Where do you come from?" She replied, "I come from Dakshineshwar." Amazed, I said, "From Dakshineshwar? Why, that's where I long to be, to see my husband and to look after him. But now I have this fever and perhaps I shall never see him again." "What are you saying?" said the girl. "Of course you'll get to Dakshineshwar. As soon as you're better, you shall go to him. I've been taking care of him there for your sake." I said, "How good you are. Tell me, are you one of our relatives?" "I am your sister," she told me. I said, "Ah, so that's why you've come to me." I then fell asleep. All right, it's 8 o'clock already. Goodness, I can't believe how time passes. But this divine visiting you know, I know a few stories, not about me, but others, devotees that have had this kind of experience. The stories they're ones that I've heard like 20, 25 years ago from Philip, actually, about some of the devotees in Sacramento, where one woman was lying on her deathbed in the hospital, and thought she also was thinking this would be her last night, that she was going to die that evening. And she said that in her fever that this woman came in who was dressed in a white gown, gown with a red border on it, she said. And she came over and she was washing my face and cooling me with a rag. And I was telling her, Mother, I'm going to die tonight. I don't feel well. And she told me, no, by morning your fever will be gone. You'll be fine. Now, this woman was not a devotee, apparently, in the story that I heard, and that she didn't know who this woman was who came in and washed her face until she was visiting the Sacramento Shrine with a friend. And when she went up to the shrine and saw Mother's picture, she began weeping and told her friend, that's her. That's the woman that came to me in the hospital the night that I thought I was going to die and took care of me, you know, like that. And then I do have my own story with a devotee down in San Diego, who was very, very, very old woman and lived by herself, took care of herself until her very last days. And me and Swami Harinamananda went to visit her, and she was in bed, and I sat on one side of the bed, and Harinamananda sat on the other side, and we were each holding one of her hands. And she was out of it. She was kind of asleep. And at one point, she opens her eyes and looks up with some attention, looking straight ahead, not to either me or Harinamananda. And she says, "Oh, Mother, you've come, but why are you wearing a veil?" And Harinamananda and I looked at each other like, what's going on? And then she said, "Oh, I see, because the boys are here today." And, you know, I talked to her about this experience. And, you know, the devotees down there were always trying to get her to accept a live-in caretaker that would live in her apartment and take care of her. And she would tell the Swami, "Oh, Maharaj, no, Mother takes care of us, is taking care of me." And the Swami said to her, "Yes, Mother takes care of all of us." And she said, "Yes, but Swami, Mother is with me. She is taking care of me. I see her all the time during the day." And it's interesting because this woman was blind, actually, and lived alone, and had this direct experience. So we read about, you know, Kali helping the Divine Mother, and our ego will tell us, "Oh, that's because she's divine, and, you know, of course, God hangs with God." That's not the case. God can be seen and is meant to be seen. And the direct experience of God is the reality of life, you know, not experienced by many because so many are driven by their egos and not by their divine nature. And so if you surrender to the Divine Mother and allow your divine nature to manifest, God appears. You will see God, not in an abstracted, metaphorical way. You will see the divine. You will interact with the divine. There's plenty of accounts in the scriptures of that truth. And hold on to that and know that you're not alone, that you're not the only one that believes in you. You're not the only one who believes you can do this, that the Divine Mother has given herself to you to serve you and to bring you to this knowledge and to bring you to this bliss of knowing reality. All right. Anybody have a question or a concern?
I thought the noises were like an angry groundhog with the storm and everything on your end.
Oh, you can hear
I thought
them.
it was
Yeah.
like an angry groundhog trying to get in really bad or something.
Yeah, it sounds like that. It's going crazy out there right now. It's very windy, lots of lightning, very pouring rain. I still have my window over there open, but I didn't know you could hear all that. I would have shut it. Sorry about that.
Can you
Yeah.
send some of that rain over this way?
Yes, I'll get right on that, Kamala. I thought I had already done that. I'm terribly sorry.
So, Swami, I have another story
Yes.
about Holy Mother that I heard. This was a devotee couple in Seattle, and the husband was dying of cancer, was in the hospital, and nurses going around. His wife was very devoted. She would come every day and spend the whole day there. And she went out of the room at one point and suddenly felt an overwhelming presence of Holy Mother. I don't remember all the details of the story because it's been many years since I heard this, but he told her that Holy Mother came into the room when the wife was out of the room and comforted him by the side of the bed there. And there was no healing because his cancer was terminal and he passed away sometime later. But when she came back in, she talked to him because she had felt the presence of Mother. She didn't see her, but the husband saw her. And then later on, the wife went and talked to some of the nurses, or the nurse came, I don't remember exactly, but said, "Who is that woman that went down the hall into the room?" So some of the nurses saw some figure come into the room. So it's pretty remarkable. And this was 15 years ago, something like that, in Seattle. No joke. Holy Mother is alive and well.
Yeah, no, there is no doubt, for sure. That's awesome. One more to say.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I guess it's kind of in relation. It's not a story or anything. Sorry to disappoint you all, but I know, it's like, oh, I wish I had something to share. But I guess this may be something that kind of uplifts everyone in a different way, because you guys might not be the only ones feeling this way. But you hear all these things and you read all these books and try to connect with these figures, and it's like, I mean, how do we even know that God really loves us, that God is our own? We can say that till we're blue in the face and study the lives of these holy people, but some days it's just like, how it feels like we must, I have to, in my gut, this is my mom, this is the Divine Mother. But how is she our own? I mean, I guess until we experience that, because sometimes it just feels like I'm reading a textbook, a little sad, but
No, I appreciate that honesty, for sure, because everybody does feel that way quite often. And the best thing to do is to take that complaint directly to Mother. Directly to Mother, because she does, and she is willing to touch us in ways that change our lives and deepens our faith. But she says that as long as we're going on contented in this life, that we're content with our toys and our carryings on as a life, that Mother allows us to just do that, to spend our time with that. That it's when we're not content with this world anymore, when we're not content to play with our toys and to work out our own egoistic perspectives of what life is about, that Mother will run to the playroom and pick you up and carry you into the kitchen, with her. Not that she's really going to go into the kitchen, but that's what her criteria, that's her explanation. As long as we're content to be distracted, as long as we're looking to the world for our solutions, right? That was one of the things I learned in the monastery early on in San Francisco was, that day that the story that I tell all the time, like I do all my stories, but when I was just very depressed, I'd been in the monastery alone for about 3 months at that point, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't spend the rest of my life alone like this in this big building, rattling around. And so I was standing at the top of the stairs, And Swami came in from the office and was coming up the stairs, and he saw me and he said, "Oh, what is this?" And I told him, I said, "Maharaj, I feel so lonely and I feel so depressed. I just don't think I can do this." And he continued up the stairs, and I was expecting some sort of hug or pat on the shoulder, something. And he walked right by me, didn't say anything, and went into his room and started to close the door. And just before he closed the door, he told me, "So go to the shrine," and then shut his door. I was furious. I felt so abandoned. I was like, what is this? Because this is about soap. But I went to the shrine because he told me to. So I went and I sat in the shrine. And one of the things I learned that day was that God had never been real to me. That when I was lonely, I would call friends. When I was bored, I'd go out to the clubs. When I was, sad, I would go have a drink. It was like I had all of my temples that I visited in this world to take care of all of my afflictions, whatever they were. I would go do those things, and that would distract me and take care of me. And I realized that in no real way did I actually depend on God or actually think that God was a working solution to a problem in life. And that day in the shrine, when I sat in there and realized that I had never used the shrine as a refuge, that I had never used my relationship with God to find my contentment, to find my healing, to find anything, that I had everything lined up in the world, it was a huge revelation to me. And it was very difficult for me to swallow. But I really began working on that point, at that time, to make God my only solution, to make prayer my only help, and to give up, to renounce literally anything else but God for my conditions of life. And I think that's what God waits for. There's that other story that I repeat quite a bit, that tells the same thing. I won't go through it now because it's already late, but that same story, if you lift up a rock to protect yourself, then God will return to whatever he was doing before. But if you pray earnestly and you don't lift up your own rock to solve your own problem, but you truly look to God for a solution, God is that solution. The divine is that solution. And will manifest it in many ways, and not ways that you will be able to attribute to fantasy. God will, in fact, touch your life and answer that call. So continue on, go forward, and make that complaint in earnestness and sincerity to the Divine Mother. And she says she'll come. She promises that. But we have to learn to see her too. She visits people like that. Many people don't recognize her, don't see her. So we have to have eyes that can see God.
So these people, Swamiji, who saw Ma and she visited devotee, non-devotee, I'm wondering if they have the special criteria, or she just randomly comes to. There must be some people why she chooses over others. What is the thing?
There's not a reason for it that we know or can understand. And Thakur says that God is like a small child. One man will run after him, begging him to give him the red ball, and the child won't give him that red ball no matter what. And then he'll walk up to some random stranger and give him the red ball for no reason. So it is, or at least appears to us like that. God doesn't have that criteria, really, because any criteria that we would use is unreal. Is that not true? Any criteria that we would use to say, oh, God would come visit me because I've done this, that, and the other, that which is changing is unreal. That which changes is unreal. That which is unchanging alone is real. So God's not going to respond to unreal reasons. He's not going to come visit you because of this, that, and the other necessarily. If he comes and visits you, there's a divine providence in it, which probably, even if he tried to describe it to us, we'd sit there cross-eyed trying to figure out what he was talking about. But enjoy your dinner, Lucy. So yes, no, I don't think it's directly related to easily identifiable reasons. But I also think that it can happen for anyone. That love is the way that God is. I would say something dangerous here. Love is the only way God is controlled. He actually says that. He actually says that he deigns to give pure love to anybody because he becomes their slave. You know, if we have that divine, sincere love for God, she can't resist us. She can't resist our requests. And so make that your focus more than anything, to nurture that divine love, nurture that love of love in your life. And the rest will take care of itself. So.
Beautiful.
All right. Anybody else have something?
I've got one.
Yes.
I came in a little late, but I caught the part about being idle. And I just wanted to say, like, it really resonates with me because that's when I find my triggers for like smoking and lustful behaviors and things, all that kind of stuff. Just desires to go like find what's in the fridge or go to the convenience store, always in times of idleness. And I'm not sure how to go about combating that idleness, what to fill that idleness with. And because it seems like not all idle times are equal. Because like if I'm doing something towards God, it's very different than if I'm playing a video game. And those times I'm playing video games, all those triggers still arise. But when I am trying to do things for God and in the pursuit of God, even if there's a lull in that time frame, it seems to be almost kind of protected. I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah, you're absolutely right, and very observant. So your practice is going well. That's exactly right. Anything in the world is a distraction. It doesn't lift the mind. It just distracts the mind. And so all of those things remain in equal strength as to where they've always been. So the world and distracting yourself is not the intention here. When Mother's talking about the work that she's doing, it's japam, it's service in any kind. It's getting on the phone and going through your address book. How's that for a reference to old age? When you're going through that little book that you have with everybody's names and addresses in it, if you just go ahead and call some of those people, just check in with them. Hey, I just called to see how you were. I just wanted to let you know I was thinking of you and that I care about you. You know, the world is already better if you do that even once. So when you have idle time like that, if you don't have anything to do, you literally don't have anything to do. Yes, you're right. Just picking up a worldly diversion of some kind won't be helpful. It'll just keep the mind in the same condition, but distract it from the moment. So it might save you in the moment, but all that, it won't improve your condition. It's the name that lifts the mind. It's the thought of the beloved, of the divine, that lifts the mind. Songs of love, acts of kindness, books of wisdom, contemplating wise things, reading wise literature and trying to ponder it and understand it. These things actually lift the mind higher and produce a bubble of devotion in there that is protective. But more than anything, it makes you aware of the presence. And in the presence, in the awareness of presence, is an infinite strength, is an infinite truth. That will, even if those things arise in your mind, it will give you the presence of mind to identify them and know their nature and to let go of them, to not be attracted by them, not to flirt with them. So excellent insight. Very, very good pointers and true. So that's why that constant call to watch the mind carefully. It's just a machine, So. All right.
Thank you.
Very good, everyone. All right. Well, Jai Ma, Jai Thakur, Jai Swamiji, Jai Jesus, Buddha.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank
you.
Be well,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.